Well, as we told you in the big lead, there was lots of action in our region. In Olympia, a group took over a hotel. 7 people were arrested. Employees were cowering in fear, locked away, because some of the protesters, they had axes and knives. Meanwhile, in Tacoma, there were garbage bags dumped outside of a city manager's house, and there was a flyer that had this person's name and number on it because she is with Tacoma Housing Now. Irene Morrison joins us here on the Dori Monson Show. Irene, I appreciate you coming on with me today.
Hi, I just want to be clear that I only am a spokesperson for Tacoma Housing Now and not for Olympia Housing Now.
Understood.
So I'm kind of limited into how I can speak about the Ollie protest.
I will not even ask you to speak on the Olympia protest because I know that that was a different organization. Although your group had a very similar one at that motel in Fife a few weeks ago, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll talk about that strategy, but let's begin with why did you guys dump a bunch of garbage outside a city manager's house this weekend?
Sure. Tacoma Housing Now is an autonomous collection of individuals who take action to raise awareness about the housing crisis in Tacoma. We do not have any leadership. I am just a spokesperson. And so this was an action to raise awareness about a very specific problem. We have one of the groups in our coalition is Food Not Bombs Tacoma, who has a bunch of street medics who go out regularly to take care of the medical needs of our houseless community. And they are consistently stymied in their ability to take care of these folks by the unhygienic and unsanitary conditions of the camp. We tried repeatedly to get the city, we had a couple of meetings with the mayor to get them to take swifter action on this. And the whole system is necrotic. They have these small pilot programs like the so-called Purple Bag program, which supposedly helps with this issue. But we had over 200 bags of trash. We wanted to prove that this is a huge issue. Diseased rats are running around these camps. Our medics can't effectively treat conditions.
I understand that. But why export that if there are diseased rats running around garbage? Why would you take it to the city manager's house? Why export that problem to a city official's house?
Because we want them to stop ignoring the problem. These folks have to live with that every day, and we are tired of people closing their eyes and remaining blind to these horrific conditions. So we need to bring it to their doorstep. If we have any hope, we tried the other way. We tried going to city officials, and it didn't work. So this is desperate. This is the only option.
I mean, let's talk openly and honestly here. Nothing is going to work as long as people are using drugs. And what I've always advocated is that our society should provide drug addiction treatment, job training, mental health treatment, but that has to come first because we can't just take drug addicts and people who have no regard, sadly, and might be through mental illness, but they have no regard for their house. We can't just put them in somebody else's motel or hotel. Claudia, that's not fair to anyone.
So Tacoma Housing Now believes in the concept of permanent supportive housing as the first thing that people need in order to get back on their feet. And this is a model that Seattle is trying out, that other places all around the country. Philadelphia Housing Action folks are people that we were inspired by folks down in LA as well. And we believe that you can't treat these illnesses. We see addiction as a disease, and you can't treat these diseases without giving them permanent supportive housing first.
Well, and that's where, and I think you and I probably have a lot more middle ground than we would have realized. But I think we need to invest, and I know it'd be expensive. We need to invest in dormitory-style housing where they offer the drug treatment, but it's got to go hand in hand. And this building small houses and telling people they can keep drinking and keep using heroin and meth, that's a failure. And all the cities you mentioned, Seattle, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, those are among the worst when it comes to homelessness. So if we try to solve this problem by just saying we're going to build a bunch of small houses and then we'll get you clean, it's not going to work. And we're going to attract more homeless drug addicts from around the country because they know there's a place where they can come and kill themselves in taxpayer-subsidized small houses. And then we're not doing anything for human lives, are we?
Well, I think where you and I might part ways is that we see these people as humans and we love them and we care about them, and we have been building relationships with them for a year now. In the work that we do, going out to the camps, our medics go out to the camps 3 times a week and care for these people. Harm reduction is the most successful model in terms of getting people back on their feet. Just giving them a list of rules is not going to be successful. Other programs like AA have a 92% failure rate. We have to try something new.
But what we're trying isn't working. And Seattle and Tacoma and Olympia are a prime example. I mean, it is unbelievable.
Permanent supportive housing has not really been tried up until now in Seattle. It's new. You can see any number of articles in the Seattle Times about how nonprofits are switching from congregate shelter to non-congregate shelter. Right now, FEMA is reimbursing 100% of the cost for non-congregate shelter for people over the age of 65 and people with pre-existing conditions. And let me tell you, it's hard to live on the street. Most people have pre-existing conditions. This FEMA reimbursement would really work.
I want to treat that as a condition of getting housing, but I do not think housing should be a prerequisite because you also know if you work, and by the way, I see them as human beings and I love them as well, and I would not let my 3 kids go into some shed and continue to kill themselves, which is what happens with too much of the small housing. I don't really see the
connection here. I mean, I would encourage you to come down and do rounds and see these things and really just see like what
I've gone
through. People seem to be lacking compassion in this whole narrative. We've got places where there's a curfew of 7 p.m. and no drinking allowed. No one who implements these curfews would ever willingly implement them in their own homes. It's really a problem of infantilizing houseless people and acting like they're not agents in their own lives.
And this has nothing to do with the lack of compassion. It has to do with reality and the fact that with all the money, we've spent billions and billions of dollars on homelessness, and the industry of homelessness seems to be
agree. Yeah.
The industry of homelessness wants to perpetuate the problem and not solve it because it's a gigantic money. So that's what we agree on. But I'm saying they need treatment. But let's get to these hotel takeovers because you guys did the one in Fife. The Olympia group says they were inspired by you. What's the fairness? I mean, you talk about compassion. For a small businessman who owns a motel and your group goes in, takes it over, refuses to leave. The rooms were trashed and filthy from what I heard after these takeovers. And what's the compassion for the individual who is trying to make a life and trying to make a living when you guys act as criminals and illegally take over somebody's property?
Sure. We believe in people over profit. We wanted to get that hotel owner paid through the FEMA reimbursements, through the CARES Act funding. And the hotel owner originally was working with us. He was involved in making the requests for funding to both the city of Fife and the city of Tacoma and the county. He was definitely being two-faced in the way he treated our folks who were trying to get him paid, and the way he spoke to the media. He gave us keys. When people were locked out of rooms,
you rented
he would
rooms
give us
for one
keys.
night. You rented rooms for one night and then refused to pay. That's why you got keys. But
he gave us keys repeatedly during days that we had not paid for rooms. He was working with us.
When you have a little catchphrase, you say, "We believe in people over profit." So if somebody came and robbed you at gunpoint as long as they took the money and gave it to somebody in need, would you be okay with that? Are you okay with criminality if the person uses the money for something you approve of?
I just think that analogy is pretty absurd, and I'm not really.
Well, it's what you did to the motel owner. You said
no one robbed
criminality
anyone at
should be
gunpoint.
excused
this was a peaceful
because
protest.
you believe in people over profit. That is your
Peaceful protest. No one robbed anyone at gunpoint.
Well,
the
you
only
inspired
people
a group
who had
in
guns
Olympia.
At that hotel were the police.
They had knives and axes last night in Olympia, and you inspired that group.
I can't speak to that. That does sound pretty inaccurate to me, but I can't speak directly to that.
Okay. Hey, look, I appreciate conversations like this. I come away with this, hearing what you say and thinking there is some common ground out there. And, I believe we should build dormitories. We should staff them with drug addiction treatment. We should mandate that people be clean. And if they're not clean, they got to go. You probably don't agree with that.
I was with you about 80%. We know that business as usual doesn't work. I agree with you about that. I do think that we need to push back against these narratives of criminality. People are dying. The real criminals here are the people who have blood on their hands, like the city and the county, who are doing nothing while people freeze to death. Our medics have found dead bodies frozen in the street. They're tired of it. Those are the real criminals. It's
very sad. Well, there are a lot of criminals, prosecutors who legalize drugs and attract people to our area, people who say that we'll stop prosecuting crimes, which encourages people to come to our area to die. And there are a lot of people who are culpable in all this. Look, I enjoyed talking with you about all of this. I think these are good conversations. I'm glad you came on with me.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. She is with Tacoma Housing Now. That is Irene Morrison joining us. Love to hear your thoughts on what we just kicked around. You can text me at 98973. That's 98973. Lots more to come on the Dori Monson Show.